If you stay in the house and you don't respect the elders in the house, when your ass is being whooped outside, nobody supports you. And that's what happened to South Africa.
I hate it here. I want to come home. Everybody's so mean, and there's this one guy who follows me around.
In their World Cup opening game with Mexico, when South Africa lost 2-0 to Mexico at the 2026 World Cup, something unusual happened. Across all social media platforms, many Africans from countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Kenya, and others weren't supporting the African representative, they were supporting Mexico. Why would Africans cheer against another African team?
The fact that the entire continent of Africa is supporting Mexico over South Africa is absolutely frying me, bro. I did my research as an African brother myself, and honestly, it makes sense. I'm doing the same thing. Here we are all the way from across the world in Indonesia, waking up early just to hate on South Africa. Go Mexico. Mexico, welcome to Africa.
The answer has less to do with football and more to do with years of tension, frustration, and accusations of xenophobia in South Africa.
I see a lot of South Africans are trying to justify this to the whole world, but there's no way you can justify this because what you are doing is simply wrong, and the whole world is watching, and you are playing a dangerous game because you are turning the whole Africa against you. Given your situation, that is a very dangerous thing to do. There has to be a better way you can fix that problem.
The game was a one-sided game. South Africans barely could move the ball past the Mexican defenders. Mexico's performance was so good that they won the game 2-0. You know, the opening game for every team that plays the World Cup sets the pace and tone for how you are going to perform throughout the World Cup. And yesterday was a very bad day for South Africa. But after the final whistle of the game, the conversation quickly moved beyond football. Many African countries celebrated Mexico's win over South Africa, and this is weird because it's the first time I've seen in any World Cup championship where Africans have turned against one African country and they are all supporting an opponent which is not an African country. And South Africa's loss to Mexico became the joy of so many Africans on social media, from Twitter, which is now known as X, to Instagram and to Facebook. Everybody was trolling South Africa, and this joy comes as a result of how South Africans have treated other nationals, especially other African nationals in their country, which is not a pleasant one. We can talk about the recent xenophobic attacks that South Africans have carried out against other African nationals from Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and other citizens from other African countries. A lot of African migrants who were in South Africa running businesses and working there have lost a lot of investment in South Africa because they had to run for their lives. And this has resulted in a kind of not cordial relationship between South Africa and some other African countries. Ghana is one of them. The relationship between South Africa and Ghana now is not the best. Ghana is planning to sue South Africa so that they will pay for damages caused to its citizens who lost properties and businesses in South Africa because of all of these protests that led to violent attacks of foreign nationals, and in particular African citizens. Most South Africans are not involved in xenophobic violence. However, repeated incidents have shaped perceptions across the continent. For many Africans, these events of xenophobic attacks in South Africa have created wounds that might never fully heal. Now, come to think of it, South Africa is one country that almost every African country helped in the past when they were fighting for freedom and fighting against apartheid. Countries like Ghana, Nigeria, these countries helped South Africa with finances and even some other stuff. Nelson Mandela, may his soul rest in perfect peace, traveled to so many countries across the African continent to seek support so that his party could win elections in South Africa and make laws that would end apartheid in South Africa for black South Africans. Some countries across the African continent even provided training and support for South African liberation movement that were fighting against apartheid back in South Africa. Here we are in 2026 and South Africans are telling other African nationals that they don't need them in their country. Many Africans remember that when South Africa needed Africa, Africa stood with South Africa. The support that Mexico got from the continent of Africa and Africans wasn't necessarily about Mexico. It was a protest. Africans wanted to make a statement against xenophobia. They wanted to tell South Africa that they are not happy with the xenophobic attacks on African nationals in South Africa. It was also a reflection of frustration. They wanted to let South Africa know that Africa is trying to unite, so them South Africa trying to carry out xenophobic attacks against other African nationals brings a whole lot of distractions to what the entire Africa is trying to achieve. And so people are just frustrated with everything that's going on in South Africa right now, and it was a way that the African people wanted to express their disappointment in South Africa after all that Africa had done for South Africa when Mandela was fighting against apartheid in South Africa, and now modern South Africans remember none of that. There is one important question that should be asked. If fellow Africans are cheering against you, what does that say about the state of African unity that we all as Africans have been striving so hard to achieve? Imagine an Africa where Africans can support one another regardless of nationality, where we don't care whether you are South African, Ghanaian, Nigerian, regardless of what. Once you are African and doing something good, we will all support you. Again, the type of Africa where migrants are welcomed. A Nigerian is welcomed in Ghana, a Ghanaian is welcomed in South Africa, a South African is welcomed in Ghana, an Angolan is welcomed in Nigeria, and the likes. We wouldn't have barriers. Every African could travel to any other African country and still be safe and free. Now imagine the economic opportunities that we could share if we come together as one African continent, sharing skilled personnel across African countries. A skilled Ghanaian can travel to Nigeria and work there if his or her service is needed, the same way a skilled South African can travel to Ghana and work if his or her skill is needed, just like how Europeans travel within the EU and are able to go to any EU member state and carry out duties, work there and do other stuff without any problems. They are free to go to each other's country and even spend some vacation there without the citizens of that country targeting them and carrying out attacks or hate crimes against them. I think football should unite us rather than divide us. The biggest story wasn't Mexico's victory, it was a reminder of how powerful Africa could be if it truly stood together. Now to South Africans, the message is clear. This should tell you that xenophobia damages South Africa's reputation and it also destroys African solidarity. And also to my African brothers and sisters, I think we should stop generalizing all South Africans, because not all South Africans are taking part in this march and march that is targeting other African nationals in the country, because we have seen some South Africans who have come out and spoke against the xenophobic attacks on other Africans in South Africa. Dialogue is more productive than hatred, so let's encourage dialogue. Let's try to talk to each other instead of hating on each other. And one thing we should know as Africans is that we cannot fix xenophobia with more prejudice. South Africa's loss to Mexico will eventually be forgotten, but the reaction it sparked revealed something much deeper. It showed that Africa still has unfinished business when it comes to unity, and perhaps the biggest lesson from this World Cup isn't about football at all. It's about whether Africans can truly see one another as brothers and sisters. So now, do you think that Africans were justified in supporting Mexico in the match against South Africa, or you think that regardless of politics, Africans should always support African teams? Let me know what you think down in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.